How does one stay focused when you work from home? That is the challenging question. Remote work is seen as the ideal way to balance both a flexible work and home life, but it actually takes a lot of hard persistence to be able to succeed as a work from home individual. Whether you are a content creator, an Etsy shop owner, a virtual assistant, or you work for an outside company, whatever work from home job that you have to be really intentional about it so that you can stay focused and your work actually gets done, because that's how you're going to provide a consistent income. And we kind of need money to live. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my top 10 productivity tips for working from home over the last 10 years or so that I have been working in the online space. I've got a blog, I have a spin-off membership site, managed 2 YouTube channels, got the Instagram. There's a lot going on. Some are going to be some generic tips that will apply to anyone who works from home, but others will also be more specific towards content creator work, since that is what is primarily my focus. The first tip that you have probably heard before, but I fully stand behind this one, is get dressed for the day that you want to have. I'm not saying you need to squeeze into jeans. I'm not even saying you need to wear a full face of makeup. But look presentable, look put together, and when you feel good on the outside, that's going to translate to how you feel in the inside and how you approach your work. I find myself being a lot more productive when I actually get dressed for the day rather than staying in my PJs or putting on a lounge set and working from the couch. I also think it creates a healthy boundary between your work time and your personal time. When you're getting dressed for work and then at the end of work, maybe changing into yoga pants or, going for a run, doing a workout, you're transitioning from your work mindset to your home and personal time mindset. And I really think that those boundaries and that delineating line, making sure that it's there, is really going to be helpful to keep you focused on the task at hand. The second tip is to clean your space, tidy up your surroundings. I'm not quite sure who exactly said this quote, and I went to search for it and I couldn't find it, but I've heard that clutter is the enemy of creativity because it is just visual distractions flooding your mind. And I find that to be so true. I cannot sit down at my desk and work if my desk has dog hair all over it, or if there are things out of place that I can see out of the corner of my eye. But at least having a tidy area before you sit down to work, and also at the end of the day, making sure that things that migrated out of their places can be put back, is going to be really beneficial as you're working from home and trying to stay focused. One of the things that I implement that helps me on a daily basis is a 10-minute tidy. And this is just a reset after supper where I can put things back in their place and make sure that the house is ready for tomorrow and I don't have to spend time before work or during my work hours when I'm supposed to be working, cleaning up and washing the dishes. My third tip is to track your time. No, you're not on the clock necessarily, especially if you're working for yourself, but you want to pretend that you are, because when you punch in and punch out, again, it's that delineating line and boundary between your work and personal life. And I stay a lot more focused when I know that the clock is ticking. Now, I like to use the app A Tracker. I know a lot of people like to use Toggle. I didn't love that one. A Tracker is really easy for me to use, and I think it was a very small price to be able to upgrade to not have the ads and add multiple categories of where I want to track my time. Because as a content creator, I am doing administrative work, I'm doing blog content, YouTube, newsletter writing, content offers, where I'm creating new lead magnets and products, and I want to be able to track my time across all of these so that I'm not, let's say, spending tons of time on Instagram when it may not have as much of a big ROI as working on creating a new product. Being able to see where your time goes means you're less likely to want to phone it in, because you know that time is being tracked and it's not just slipping away and you don't know where it goes. Because yes, distractions abound between texts and phone calls and family members and pets and a neighbor mowing the lawn outside when you're trying to film a YouTube video. That has happened so many times. And not that you can prevent those things necessarily, but I do think the act of clocking in and clocking out puts you in the right mindset that you are at work, this is go mode, and you need to focus. If you don't feel like using a time tracking app, you can get the same motivation through the Pomodoro method, which means you're just using a timer to set for 25 minutes and then taking a 5-minute break when that goes off. And again, that really keeps you focused at the task at hand. The most important thing that we're getting through here and in all of these tips is you want to make sure that you're treating your work from home job like you would a typical 9-to-5. No, it's not the same 9-to-5. It's more flexible if you need it to be, but when we don't treat it that way, that's when I find ourselves like kind of going off the rails and being distracted and not getting our work done. My fourth tip is to set work hours, not necessarily a set schedule. Now, you can do this if you don't work for an outside company that says they want you to be tethered to your computer from this time to this time. If you do work from home on your own business, then you have a little more flexibility to say what time frames you want to work. Now, ideally, we would love to have a set chunk of time to be able to dedicate to our work, kind of like a 9-to-5. But that doesn't always happen. So I say set work hours, the amount of hours that you want to get done in a day, whether that's 4 hours on your business, 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is. And then you can time block it throughout the day to make sure you're getting in those hours because things do come up. You have to go to doctors and dentist appointments and take kids to school and sports practice, and those things may interrupt your typical 9-to-5 work time. But if you look at your day in terms of those 1 to 2 hour time blocked chunks, then you can do a few in the morning, you could do it a few in the afternoon, you could do a few in the evening. It might not be all together, but you're still getting your work done. So focus on the number of hours that you want to reach in a day rather than a specific schedule, and see if that helps you not feel like you are completely thrown off if something pops up throughout the day because you know that there's another time block down in the rest of the schedule that you can squeeze in the rest of your work. Number 5, now this is a big one. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb and then put it away. Don't even have it sitting next to you. It will shock you how much you can get done if you do this. And the reason why Do Not Disturb is generally not enough is because there was this study done that I thought was so fascinating that said the mere presence of your phone next to you while you're working is still demanding your attention. Even if you're not using it, you're still aware of it being there and aware of the connection to the outside world. If you're worried about emergencies and someone getting a hold of you, you can of course set them to be able to come through your Do Not Disturb if you need to do that. The other thing that I recommend is not necessarily using the Do Not Disturb option, but use the driving option because then you can customize a simple message to be able to send out to anyone who texts you. Of course, we do not have to tell people why we didn't answer the phone. We don't need to be beholden to them, but I think it's nice to be able to make someone aware that you're in heads down work, you can't get to your phone right now, and when you get back to it, you will respond to their message. I promise this is going to be a total game changer. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb, put it in a drawer, and you will not be tempted to pick it up. Tip number 6 is day theming. And I have been in like a love-hate relationship with day theming. It has taken me a really long time over the last, I don't know how many years that I've been trying it to find the system that works for me. So if you're not familiar with day theming, it is basically assigning a topic or a type of work that you're going to do to a specific day. This is really great to help people who wear a lot of hats, particularly in the content creation niche, owning an online business. You have a lot of different tasks going on. By assigning a type or a topic or theme to your day, that's going to keep you a lot more focused during that day, and it's also going to make sure that you're hitting every part of your business throughout the week and you're not letting anything slip through the cracks. So Mondays for me, no matter what week it is, are going to be internal systems kind of day. Administrative work, just little things that don't require a lot of brain power because Mondays are my potato day. And I did a whole video on what I tackle on that day, so you can go check that out. Link will be in the description. My Fridays are more of like a catch-up, catch-all day. What didn't I get to during the week that I can do that day. It's also the day that I like to spend more time on my travel brand, Open Roading. And then Tuesday through Thursday, they are deep work days, but I've separated them out so that every other Tuesday is either a blog post day or a YouTube filming day. Wednesdays are going to be my newsletter writing day and also a blog post day or a YouTube day. So they kind of flip every other week. And then Thursdays, every single Thursday is like my master project day. What am I working on? That's kind of like an overarching maybe product that I'm creating or updating a section of my website or whatever project I have at that time, or a 6-week sprint goal. I'm working on that on Thursday. And sometimes I don't always get to those things on those days. Sometimes we will live in an RV and we travel full time. And so we'll be traveling on a Thursday. And so I need to swap like my Thursday and Friday. So just play around with it yourself with your specific schedule. Find a cadence that feels good and right for you. And don't be afraid to keep tweaking it. Now, I briefly mentioned this before in another tip, but I want to dedicate the entire section to it. And that is time blocking. Time blocking, I will forever be doing this because it makes such a difference to know exactly when you're going to be working on specific tasks. I do have a whole video about time blocking in Google Calendar, which I will link to below. But essentially, time blocking is just looking at your day in 1 to 2 hour chunks and deciding what you're dedicating that time to. I think it really helps you be realistic about what you can do in a day, because we do not have all this time to do everything that's on our list. So we have to cut things, we have to prioritize and make sure that what we can reasonably accomplish ends up on our calendar. And when it's on our calendar, like an appointment, like a doctor's appointment or another event, we are literally assigning time to it, a start and end time, and saying that's what I'm going to focus on during this time. And I can only have so many of those throughout a day. So it does take some time to get used to how long tasks typically take, which is why I think it's important back in, tip number 3, to download an app that tracks your time so you know how long it takes you to do certain things so that you can then time block them more effectively. Tip number 8, make sure you're taking breaks. I am so bad at this because I will get caught up in a task and be sitting at my desk for over 3 hours working on it and realize I haven't gotten up at all. And they say that the sedentary lifestyle is the number one cause of early death. And I don't want that. So I try to make sure that I'm getting up and walking around every 50 to 60 minutes or so. If I'm getting a snack or going outside during lunch and making sure that I'm getting a walk in. My goal, because my job is primarily a desk job, is to get 5,000 steps a day. It is not the 10,000 that everyone sees as the holy grail of step achievement. So it is reasonable for me, and it helps me make sure that I'm taking a longer walk or multiple walks a day just to be able to get up and move around. I think it's also really important to make sure that these breaks are intentional breaks that are refueling you. If looking at Instagram refuels you and makes you feel better about yourself and your day, then by all means, take a break and check Instagram. But for me, that's not the case. It's getting outside, it's getting the sun on my face, it's walking around. Sometimes it's even watching an educational YouTube video, which I will often do during my lunch break, is to make sure that I'm still staying on top of industry stuff, and it keeps my mind engaged so that when I'm done with lunch, I don't feel like I just watched a TV show and feel like I'm ready to just relax and go to bed and phone it in. Instead, I'm still kind of in work mode because I've done something that has engaged my brain and I'm ready to tackle the afternoon's tasks. Tip number 9 is implementing startup and shutdown routines. Now, even if your schedule, like I talked about before, is not a 9 to 4 or a 9 to 5 and you're breaking it up throughout the day, you can still implement a startup and shutdown routine by whenever you start your work, doing this routine, and then whenever you're ending your work for the day, doing the shutdown routine then. Now, what does this entail? It is about 20 to 30 minutes of getting situated, because a lot of times, and people will say Eat the frog, do the hardest thing first, do the one that is the task that is the top priority. Make sure you're focusing on that. But we're not always ready, or at least I'm not always ready to be able to tackle that hard task right away. A startup routine helps you ease into the workday by getting some of those busy work tasks out of the way, like checking email and responding to a few of them, or checking into like Notion or ClickUp or Trello or Asana, whatever productivity system you use, and seeing what notifications there are left by other people in the team, etc. So it's really just getting your mind engaged, but in like a slow way so that by the time the 20 to 30 minutes are up, you're ready to start tackling some harder tasks. The shutdown routine is kind of the same thing where you're checking email, checking into messages, responding to a few of them as you can. I also like to declutter my desktop because I will be taking lots of screenshots throughout the day and saving files. And if I wait until like the full end of the week, then it is just a total mess. So I try to at least organize a few files, if not all of them, to kind of reset my desktop for the next day and tidy it up. Limiting your email checking specifically to these times is going to help you feel like you're not putting out fires all day or, working on the defensive. You're actually dedicating times to these to deal with them. And that helps my brain to say, okay, I'm going to respond to these emails, but during these specific times. Like it does not have to take up brain space throughout the rest of the day. And that allows your mind to be able to focus at the task at hand that is actually going to move your work and business forward. My final tip, which is kind of an obvious tip, but I do feel like we need to talk about it, is to know what you're supposed to do when you sit down to work. Again, it seems really obvious, but a lot of us still don't have these systems set up to be able to know what tasks we're doing for the day, how we're tackling it, how we are making sure that we're doing the everyday tasks, but also tasks related to bigger projects and long-term goals. I really think a productivity and planning system that you have in place, whether it's through Notion, Asana, ClickUp, Trello, whatever it is really going to help you be more intentional about the work that you're doing from home. If you're interested in using Notion in particular, make sure you subscribe to this channel because that is what we talk about here. I share a lot of Notion tips and tutorials on how to use the system. I especially go through step-by-step builds with you. It's all free on this channel. So if you're interested in Notion, I'd love to hang out and nerd out about it together. But back to productivity systems for a minute. There is a lot we can talk about this in terms of like weekly planning and knowing what you're supposed to do. And I'm going to do a video in the future about how I weekly plan specifically, but I'll kind of try to do like a Cliff Notes version of what I think you need in place. You definitely need a master task list. I have a video all about this. It gives you a free Notion template to keep all of your tasks in one place. These are tasks related to absolutely everything that you do to make sure that when you think of something that you have to do, it automatically goes into this spot so you don't lose it. And then when it comes to weekly planning, you're referencing that task list to make sure that you know exactly what you need to do according to your day themes for that week, according to a major project that you are working on, according to your typical routines and things that you need to complete on a week-to-week basis, like household chores and things like that. And then once you have your weekly list, then you can work off of that to create your daily list. I like to create my to-do list at night because it just gives my brain a rest. I don't have to think about what I'm going to do the next day. I can go to bed knowing it has all been decided. I'm not forgetting anything. And then when I wake up in the morning, I know exactly what I'm going to do when I sit down at my desk for work. I also recommend choosing one thing, not the top three, just one thing that is going to be your most successful task for the day. Like what is going to make you feel like the day has gone well if you complete this task. In my Hemlock and Oak daily planner, which I use Notion for like everything, but when it comes to daily planning, I just love having a planner. There is a little focus section that I use for my top priority task. And I know that even if that's not the thing I'm tackling first, because again, easing into doing the harder things, maybe I need a few tasks to check off to give me a little bit momentum. That is my one focus for that day that I want to make sure I complete before the day is done. And when it comes to the rest of your tasks, sometimes if I have a lot to do on a particular day, then I will order them because that helps me know, okay, when I'm done with this one, I go to this one. Then when I'm done with that, I can go to the next one. It sounds really obvious and simple, but I promise it works because your brain doesn't have to think really hard and decide, what am I going to do next? What do I feel like doing next? You've already decided ahead of time and you can just follow your list. I hope these tips have been helpful for you, that you can implement them so you can feel less distracted and more focused when you sit down to work for the day. Let me know which of these tips you're going to try in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.